The Travel Transformation Podcast is proud to be partnered with Give the Goodness Global, an amazing global outreach project helping families in need all over Southeast Asia and beyond. Please check them out at Instagram.com/Give the Goodness Global today. And now on to the podcast episode.
Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, where we talk all things travel and all things transformation, exploring the life-changing potential of solo travel, intentional travel, and location-independent working. Whether you're an aspiring digital nomad or simply wish to boost your confidence through epic travel experiences, I'm here to motivate and inspire you to go after all your wildest dreams. I'm Jessica Grace Coleman, author, certified travel coach, founder of the Travel Transformation Company, and your host for the Travel Transformation Podcast. Travel changed my life. Now let's change yours. You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the 100th episode of the Travel Transformation Podcast. And I can't quite believe I'm saying that. As ever, I'm your host, Jess, and I wanted to really mark this milestone in my podcast journey with an entire episode because I'm the kind of person who's always working, always thinking up new ideas, always chasing the next thing. And I never really take the time to pause, reflect, and actually celebrate my achievements. And I'm sure a lot of people listening will be able to identify with that, no matter what you do. Mainly because I tend to downplay them. If something hasn't made me money, for instance, I think, that didn't work, let's try something else. I don't pause and think about all the hours of work that went into something and how amazing it is that I even achieved it, whether or not anyone saw its value in my eyes or whether or not it made any money. I think we have to celebrate doing the thing, even if we don't get the outcome we want. We have to look at the journey, not the destination, not the outcome. So that's what I'm going to do with this episode. I'll be talking about some of my favourite episodes and interviews, but I'll also be giving you a behind-the-scenes look at what actually goes into producing a podcast and what I've learned over the past year or so. So if you have a podcast or you'd like to have a podcast one day, this might be interesting to you. If not, well, hopefully it's not too boring. We'll see how we go. So I said I want to take a moment to celebrate, and 100 episodes of anything, 100 things of anything is reason to celebrate, I think. But I think it is particularly a good reason to celebrate in terms of podcasts because, there are loads of stats going around the internet, and have been for years, about the number of podcasts that don't get to so many episodes, the number of people who quit their podcasts when they first start out. So I have no idea what is the actual statistic, but I've seen it said a few times that 90% of podcasts don't even get past the 3rd episode. I've also heard it being the 7th or the 10th episode, but either way, if 90% of podcasts don't get past those episodes for whatever reason, people realise how much hard work it is, they don't see initial results, they don't find it as fun as they thought it would be, whatever it is. The fact that I've got to 100, I think, is pretty good reason to celebrate. Whether or not I have the number of listeners I want, whether or not it's making me money or costing me money, and it's definitely the latter at the moment, believe me, I'll go into that later. It's still a really big achievement, so I need to celebrate that. It's sort of nearly 2 p.m. here when I'm recording this, so I'm not going to be popping open the champagne, but I have got a nice mug of sticky chai pumpkin flavour tea that I got from my Halloween tea advent calendar that my friend Kelly got me for my birthday. It was amazing. This cool spooky cartoon house and amazing tea bags and matcha powder and sticky chai tea leaves behind every door. And this is amazing. So this is how I'm celebrating now. But tomorrow I'm going to Wales for a week with a couple of my friends and we're just going to chill and relax for a week. And there's a hot tub and I'm taking some bubbly. So I will definitely be celebrating next week. And yeah, I just want to remind you to celebrate even the little things in life you achieve or the big things. And I'm going to say this is a big thing. I'm going to put that out there because usually I downplay it and I don't want to. So yay me. And yay everyone who has helped me. And I'm going to go into my help that I've had later. So I started my podcast after years of wanting to do one on all kinds of different subjects that never happened in October last year, so October 2022. And at that point, I was doing 1 episode a week and I was doing all the work myself. All the prep, the research, coming up with episode ideas, writing scripts, coming up with questions for guests, scheduling interviews, following up, editing the podcast episodes, uploading and scheduling them, doing the graphics for each episode, sending out the emails to my email list, doing the promo posts on social media, doing the show notes, putting in all the links, creating individual pages on my site for each episode, complete with links, show notes, and a transcript of the episode that I had to edit myself. It was a lot, and it still is a lot, especially since I now do 2 episodes a week. But I also have help now, so that is sort of the number one thing I've changed, rather than going from 1 to 2 episodes a week, and I'll say why I did that in a bit. Hiring help, when a lot of people put this off because of the expense, and I've sort of gone back and forth about the expense of it, but I'm essentially buying back my time. Like, I run a full-time business, I have a side hustle, and then I do this on top. Before, when I was doing everything myself, it would be at least 10 hours a week out of my time. So buying back any amount of my time is definitely worth it. And I found this amazing podcast editor online called Irish. Shout out to Irish. She'll be editing this episode. And I think it was about 6 months into me having my podcast when I hired her. And it was initially to do the audio editing for each episode. Because I actually don't mind doing the editing. I quite enjoy it, but I by no means an expert. And again, it was taking several hours a week that I really could have done with to do stuff that was actually bringing in money. So she did all my podcast episode editing. Then after a couple of months, she started doing a lot of other podcast related tasks for me. So a lot of the stuff I just mentioned, the uploading and scheduling of episodes, creating graphics, scheduling my emails and promo posts, creating the pages on my site, creating promotional assets such as quote tiles and audiograms for social media, which is amazing. At the time of recording, I have had to cut back at the moment in terms of VA tasks because, as I'm sure you know, the cost of living crisis is hitting everyone, and I've needed to cut back on expenses, but I hope in the future I'll be able to get back to where we were before with that and buy back some more of my time each week. So that's amazing. Having her helping me out has been a game changer. Also AI. I've been using AI to do my transcripts for the podcasts, which would have taken me ages to type them up, just a few years ago before all this technology was available. I use Assembly AI for this. I know there are lots of other tools, and I will talk about one of them later, but I do still have to go through and edit all the transcripts. The formatting is a bit hit and miss. It does a great job of picking up on different speakers, so that's really helpful. But it does get some phrases wrong, which I understand because, some people talk really fast, like I've been doing recently. Some people have different accents. I've had lots of people from all around the world on it, and sometimes it gets a bit confused, but it's generally pretty good. One of the things that made me laugh, though, I was talking about Colin the Donkey, I think in the Ballad of Colin the Donkey episode. I can't remember what the initial sentence was, but it basically turned it into Colin the Donkey was whoring around. And I was like, no, I'm so glad I checked this. I don't want people to read the transcript and be like, what? So that's quite funny. So I still need to edit those. And at the moment, I'm doing that myself. I could pay someone else to do it, but I think it's easier for me to do it, especially if I do it soon after recording the episode, because I sort of remember in my head what we talked about, and I can understand what the word is meant to be or what the phrase is meant to be. And it's just easier for me to do it myself at the moment. That is a massive time suck, though. So in the future, if I could hire someone else to do that, or if AI gets better and doesn't keep going on about donkeys whoring around, I might be able to do that. But yeah, so Irish and AI have really helped me. And again, you can use things like ChatGPT to come up with podcast episode ideas and structures and frameworks and things to talk about. I haven't really done that yet because I have so much to talk about. I want to talk about already, but in the future that could really help as well. So why 2 episodes? As I said, I started doing 1 episode a week, and that was enough work already. But I kept having people requesting to come on and be interviewed, which was great, but that meant that I didn't have time for any of my solo episodes, which I love doing. I love taking one topic and teaching my listeners something about it that I hope will help them with their travel planning, with their mindset, with their self-development, whatever it is. And with all the interviews I was doing, I wasn't getting any chance to do that. So I switched to 2 episodes a week, doing some interviews and some solo episodes. I found that really good. I could talk about things like in a timely manner, like anything that I was releasing or any trips I'd just been on, while also getting the interviews in. But I've decided to restructure the podcast a bit because I've talked about this before, but I did one post in one Facebook group for podcast guests collaborations, and I got over 100 people booking on to be on my podcast. And I turned a couple of them away because they really didn't have anything to do with travel or mindset or self-development or any of that. But most of them had a lot to do with travel, or we could tie it back to travel, and it's all about transformation. So I wanted to do some stories about transformation that wasn't necessarily travel related, I want it to be sort of travel and transformation podcast, not just transforming through travel, because I think there's so many other things we can do to transform ourselves. And I don't want to just restrict myself to strictly travel related stuff. But yeah, the majority of people who applied sounded like they had amazing stories, and I didn't want to turn anyone away. So I booked everyone in 2 interview episodes a week until like April next year. It was a lot of work to do that initial admin anyway. But it's also a lot of work when you've got like 5-6 interviews to record a week. You've got all the prep or the research or the admin or the coming up with questions or the tagging them in the post afterwards and sending them the links and all that stuff. I found I was back to square one. That again, no room for any solo episodes. So one option was to go to 3 episodes a week. Do not have the time or the resources for that. Some podcasts I listen to do 3 a week, like one with like a shorter episode, but I think I'm going to cap it at 2 at least for now. I just can't deal with any more. But the other option is to reorganize everything and dedicate more time to my solo episodes. And I put this off for weeks because I don't like letting people down, and people have booked on. And it had taken me so long to do all these bookings. I was like, I can't rebook everyone. It's going to take too long. But I think for my own sanity, I'm going to have to change everything around, rebooks and stuff, and maybe aim for 1 interview episode a week and 1 solo episode a week, which was initially what I wanted to do before all this craziness happened. I mean, it's amazing that people want to come on, don't get me wrong, and I love talking to people and finding out their stories, but sometimes you have to strike a balance. So doing too many interviews in a week, doing all the stuff around that every week, too much, it was burning me out. So yes, looking forward, I'm going to be prioritizing more solo episodes. And that is what I've come to learn recently. And also, come to recently realize that it is my podcast and I can do what I want. Really, why am I killing myself trying to do all these interviews when I know I want to do more solo episodes? So yeah, I'm going to restructure some stuff. I've also thought about doing podcast series, like doing seasons and then having breaks. But I like the momentum I've got going 2 a week. I'm getting, being really consistent with it. And I don't really want to lose that. And I think I would if I kept stopping every few months for a break. That's me personally. I think doing it seasons is a really good idea. I listen to a lot of podcasts that do that. So, things I've learned over the past year and a bit. I think it's been almost 13 months at the time of recording. I've learned that podcasting is a lot of work. I already knew it would be, but just the hours it takes every week, especially when you're doing a 2 week, especially when I was starting out and I was doing everything, it's a lot. And I just want to point out something here. At this point, my podcast is basically just a really expensive hobby. I lose money every time I create a podcast episode because I'm not currently monetizing it. And I have several subscriptions that I need to pay for on a monthly basis. I have Libsyn, which is my podcast host. I pay for the premium version of Zoom to record my interviews. And I pay for the premium version of Canva to do all the graphics. Although I also use Canva every day for so many other things. So I would be paying for that anyway. It's a great tool. And then I pay my podcast editor and VA every week to do the editing and other podcast related tasks when I can. And then of course there's the time. Even with help, doing this podcast takes hours and hours out of my week. And that's hours of time I don't get paid for, but it's also hours of time that I could be using to do other work that I do get paid for. So yes, at the moment it's just an expensive hobby. It loses me a lot of money. So I'm sure you're thinking, well, why do I do it? Well, for one thing, it's something I always wanted to do. I wanted to do one on entrepreneurship. I wanted to do one on mindset and self-development before I got into the travel stuff, but I also incorporate all the mindset and self-development stuff in that. So I really wanted to at least try it, and I thought I'd regret it if I didn't. And it turns out I really enjoy doing it. If I didn't enjoy it, I would have stopped long ago, believe me. It's my way of producing consistent content every week for my listeners, my following, which as any entrepreneur or coach or online business person will tell you is key to consistently produce content every week. People get the like, no interest factor with you, then they know that you're going to provide good value for free on a consistent basis, and they know that they can rely on you. I also send out a weekly email list, but any other content I produce is sort of sporadic at best. So when I got into the rhythm of doing 2 episodes a week, I wanted to keep that going for as long as I could. And I really like the format. In the future, I am going to be recording a video of my solo episodes, I think. But at the moment, I like that I can just rock up whenever. I can do it while traveling. I have a little travel mic. I don't need to put makeup on. If it's just audio in the future, I will put makeup on if it's video. I do video record the video for my interviews as well, but I haven't really been using the videos much, and I want to do more with that in the future. But I like the format. I can just turn up, I can speak. It's me in a room. The interviews are obviously a little different, but for an introvert like me, it's kind of a really great platform. And I love writing. Writing is like my first passion, but I write and I edit and I proofread all day. So having something that I can produce consistent content for that isn't writing, that isn't a blog, that isn't writing my email, that isn't a book, which isn't consistent. I release books every few years. It's just a really great way of doing it for me. And I initially wanted to have this as a kind of authority builder. So I have a presence online in this space. I went to a business conference in April of this year, Expert Empires in London, and it was full of online entrepreneurs. The speakers were talking about the things you had to do these days to even be considered to be an authority or an air quotes expert in your business. And one of them asked how many people in the room had their own podcast. People put their hands up. How many had their own YouTube channel? How many had written their own book? And I'd say 90 to 95% of the audience said yes to every single one of those things. Because these days, when anyone in the world pretty much can start an online business, these things are the bare minimum you need to have to even try to make a name for yourself. If you don't have it, you're not going to be considered as much of an authority on the subject as someone who does have their own podcast, who does have their own book, who does have their own YouTube channel. So having an established podcast shows authority. It's something you can use as a sort of calling card, as a evidence that you know your stuff, especially if you've been going for several episodes. I also do it for the networking opportunities. I've met so many incredible people through interviewing them for the podcast. And with some of them, I've done podcast swaps as well and gone on their podcast too, which again has helped me with my confidence around being interviewed. And there have been people from all over the world, from all different backgrounds, in all kinds of businesses. So I really enjoyed meeting them, getting to know their stories, getting to tell their stories. On a selfish level, having a podcast is just a great networking tool. I also wanted to prove to myself that I could do this, that I could start and maintain a podcast. If you listen to any of this podcast before, you'll know that I've always been a very shy, quiet, introverted person. And doing this kind of thing, especially interviewing people, does not come naturally to me. So I wanted to use it as a tool to build my confidence, which it absolutely has, in terms of interviewing people, which I'll talk about in a bit, in terms of being interviewed, in terms of, I'm going to talk about confidence in a bit. I'm also seeing this, having a podcast, as playing the long game. So I might not be making any money from it now, but in the future, if I keep going and I keep growing, I might be able to. I might be able to monetize it. I might be able to have other people's ads on it. But even if I don't, if I start reaching more people, they'll have a big back catalogue of episodes to delve into, again, that authority piece. And if my audience gets bigger, then I might be able to use this as a platform to help more people with my books, with my courses, with my coaching, whatever I provide. So it's a way of building my audience, building my platform, and, hopefully I'll have years worth of content in the future if anyone finds me online and they're like, oh, I can learn a lot from this person. So it's all about the long game. And yeah, I mentioned consistency, but I've proved to myself that I can get content out every week, twice a week, without ever missing an episode. Even when I'm ill, even when I've been traveling and having to record on my tiny travel mic, I've been getting them out. And I've been doing this a lot by batch recording, solo episodes, by recording interviews way ahead of time. So if I have a couple of weeks when I'm not feeling great, but I've banked, 8 episodes, I know I'm good. And keeping my promises to myself is important because I don't do it a lot. But doing this podcast has shown me that I can do it. And yeah, consistency is key when getting your content out there, especially when I know I have some listeners who are expecting a new episode to drop every Tuesday and Thursday. Knowing that makes me make sure I never miss it. Another thing is interview technique. I think I've got a lot better at conducting interviews. As with anything, practice is key, and I've now done over 50 interviews in the past year for this podcast. And I've had several of my guests say that they really like my interview technique, that I make them feel at ease, that I make it fun, that I really listen to what they're saying and ask thoughtful questions instead of just reading off my own list of questions like some people do, that it feels like they're just having a nice conversation with a friend. And I love getting feedback like that because, again, none of this comes naturally to me. And if you told me a few years ago that people would be getting interviewed by me and saying that I'm one of the best interviews they've had, which has happened at least once, then I would not have believed you. I would not have believed that I'd be interviewing people and that people would say I'm a good interviewer. So you never know what you can achieve, especially when you've got limiting beliefs. You've been telling yourself you can't do stuff for years and then you just go and do it. And the more practice, the better, and just do it over and over again, and you'll get obviously a lot better at stuff. And with that comes confidence. With the whole podcast comes confidence, really. Confidence in using certain types of technology and software, confidence in meeting new people, confidence in reaching out to people, confidence in interviewing people. Like I said, confidence in getting interviewed. I've also had practice with that. Confidence in putting myself out there on social media. It really has boosted my confidence in all kinds of ways, which is crazy to think considering I'm basically just sitting in a room with a computer and a microphone. But it is the truth. And like I say, I now get interviewed for other people's podcasts too. And yes, I am usually quite nervous beforehand, but I'm not completely freaking out like I used to be. If this was me a year ago or a year and a half ago, I just wouldn't even apply to go on podcasts, let alone actually do it. I don't dread it. I don't shake with fear. It's something I can actually do. And with interviewing other people, when I first started it, I hated it. I was like, why am I doing this? I should just stick to solo episodes. I got so nervous, so stressed, so worried that something was going to go wrong, that I wasn't going to record it, that the sound was going to be bad, that the internet would cut out. And that's, just the tech side. That isn't even the interview side, the conversation, the actually talking to people side. And I was always so relieved when they were over. But now it doesn't bother me at all. I actually enjoy it. And actually that happened probably within a few months. It didn't take the whole year, but the more I do it, the more comfortable I am with it.
Sorry for the interruption, but I just have to tell you about Give the Goodness Global, an incredible global outreach project run by American veteran Cody Grannon. Cody is passionate about helping those in need all over the world, whether it's raising money for a specific family he's met while traveling in Southeast Asia, giving food and supplies to people who would otherwise go without, or simply donating his time to help wherever help is needed. Please check out Instagram.com/GiveTheGoodnessGlobal to find out more, to donate money to their current cause, or to buy Give the Goodness Global merch, all the profits of which go straight back to helping those in need. Plus, 10% of all profits from Jessica Grace Coleman's book, Intentional Travel Transformation, are donated to this brilliant cause. You can find out more about this at traveltransformationcoach.com/books. So remember, be kind and give the goodness always. Thank you. And now back to the Travel Transformation Podcast.
I'm really thinking about it. It's amazing considering what I used to be like. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I talk about it a lot in my books, Write Your Life and Intentional Travel Transformation. So I thought I'd just go through my list and just pick out a few of my favourite podcast episodes that I've done. Some solos, some interviews, and give you the numbers. And I'd just like to point out that each podcast episode has its own page now on my website. So if you go to traveltransformationcoach.com / and then the number of the episode that I read out in numerical form, so /12 for episode 12, I'll put a sample link in the show notes. You will get all the info on that episode. You'll get the links to listen to them on different platforms. You'll get the show notes and you'll get the transcript, hopefully with no donkeys whoring around. Well, I should probably mention episode number 1, as that was my first episode. It's called Intro to Jess and Her Intentional Travel Transformation. So that's traveltransformationcoach.com /1. And yeah, that was my first one. It was me recording it in my friend Ruth's house when I was cat sitting for her, for Marble the cat who I used to live with. And it took me forever. I was so concerned with all the sounds, with the cars driving past. I kept stumbling over my words. I got through so much water because I wasn't used to talking for that long. I kept stopping and starting. It was a nightmare. Honestly, it took me forever. It nearly put me off. I think I also recorded number 2 there as well. 10 Ways Solo Travel Has Changed My Life. Just getting into the swing of things a little bit more now. That was a much shorter episode though. And yeah, like I said, when you first start anything, it's going to be crap. It just is, unless you're some kind of super person. But just keep going, and before long you'll be sitting down to record episodes on the fly without any preparation, without worrying about the sound. I've just got used to if, the sound isn't perfect or if there's some noise in the background, a lot of people don't even care. Just don't stress over it. Done is better than perfect. I really like episode 3, Childhood Holiday Memories with my brother Dave, where we just talked about the memories we have of our childhood holidays. I really enjoyed that. It was nice reminiscing and seeing how our memories differ because, memories are inherently unreliable. But I really enjoyed that. We went through my Facebook photo albums from certain trips that I had on there. I read out some of his diary entries that I found a few years ago. They weren't personal diary entries. They were just, talking about stuff we did. We did a lot of going to McDonald's and Walmart on that trip when I was 10. It was all a bit of a novelty back then. Obviously now in the UK we don't have Walmart, but we have lots of McDonald's everywhere. And yeah, I just really enjoyed that episode. Number 4, I'm not going to go through all of them honestly, but how unplugging and getting back to nature can help you achieve your goals was all about my trip to Wales that I went on last year, which was the brain break I needed to give me all these epiphanies about my business. And I'm going back to Wales, a different place this time, but with the same people tomorrow. And I really could use with the break. So I'm hoping it's going to have a similar effect to my holiday last year. I think that was the last time I had time off. I've obviously been traveling since then, but I always take my laptop with me, do some work. I'm going to take my laptop with me this time, but I'm going to try and not do any work. I'll just do my admin and emails. So that's an interesting episode. I talk about where ideas come from and how giving yourself a change of scenery and just a break from all your daily stuff can really help you see things from a different perspective. Number 5, I promise I'm not just going to go through them all, but my epic Halloween New England road trip, one of my favourite trips ever, and I really hope to emulate it, hope to relive it to one day. If you want to go to New England, I went to all 6 states, plus New York. We did lots of Halloween stuff, lots of autumn-related stuff, went to Stephen King's house, did lots of creepy tours, went to Salem for Halloween, a big street party. If you're a fan of Halloween, if you want to go to New England, or you want to go to see all the autumn leaves, leaf peeping is what it's called, I highly recommend listening to episode 5. Okay, how trash TV's changed my life, number 7, is also a sort of catalyst episode of what started my whole journey. And I talk about it in my book, Intentional Travel Transformation as well, but it's how a reality TV show called 20-somethings Austin changed my entire life. So if you're intrigued by that, that's number 7. Number 9 is my incredibly Irish Father Ted road trip. If you're a Father Ted fan or an Ireland fan, I would recommend listening to that. We went to lots of Father Ted related places, including the Ted House in County Clare, I believe, in Ireland. Okay, Have You Backed Up Your Life is episode 13. This is all about leaving a legacy, not losing your memories. There's a quote, an ancient African quote, when an old man dies, a library burns to the ground, and it's all about how to stop that from happening. So that's episode 13. I really like that one. Okay. I do a bonus episode. I did episode 16, which was the review of my year and my 2023 plans. I'm going to do another one this year. So I recommend listening to that one and listening to this one and see if I achieved anything I planned to achieve. I actually can't remember what I said in that, so I'm going to have to listen to that before I record my next year's one. And hopefully it hasn't all gone to pot. Okay, so let's look at some interviews. Number 20 is interview with solo female travel blogger Meredith San Diego. She's one of my friends. I met her in Thailand when we went to the Content Castle, which was a writer's house, and we wrote content in exchange for room and board. We talk about our time there. We talk about her time in the Peace Corps. We talk about our little gecko friends over there, the cocktail places we went to, the Naked Burglar, all our adventures in Thailand and Koh Samui. That's episode 20 with Meredith San Diego. My friend Sunny also came on while I was in South Africa. We did interview with digital nomad and travel blogger Sunny Heeson Lim is episode 23. We recorded that my little travel mic in a bedroom in our Airbnb in South Africa. And talking of South Africa, episode 28 is my South Africa roundup. So I talk about my time there, the work that I was doing there, the places I went, the penguins I saw, so cute, and the seals, the beauty of South Africa, also how I couldn't deal with the heat, and also talk about load shedding. So if you're interested in South Africa, that's episode 28. How to design your epic travel alter ego solo episode, which is episode 30. I love talking about alter egos. And yeah, it's all about creating sort of the best, not the best version of yourself, it's creating a different version of yourself that you can step into their shoes anytime you need to do the hard thing, whether that's business related, whether it's booking a flight, whether it's whatever it is, and you need to like get some of that confident energy that you might not have, you can take it from your alter ego. I really like that episode. Okay, if you want to be a digital nomad, episode 33 is your digital nomad starter guide. Lots of tips and tricks in there. And episode 34 is interview with Cody Grannon, founder of Give the Goodness Global. So this is what the little bit you hear at the start of every episode. I give 5% of online course sales to Give the Goodness Global and 10% of my profits from my Intentional Travel Transformation book. Things have been a bit quiet recently, but hopefully that will pick up and I'll be able to donate some more. And yeah, I just really, really encourage you to listen to episode 34. listen to Cody's story, listen to how he got into it, listen to the people he helps, follow him on social media, Give the Goodness Global, give what you can. He has merchandise for sale as well, stuff like that. And yes, please check out 34 if you haven't already. Okay, so we have episode 40 is with my friend Sarah Hughes, midlife adventurer and part-time digital nomad. I met her in Spain. I've since met up with her in Devon, where she lives. I stayed with her for a week. I've met up with her in Lichfield, which is near my hometown. And yeah, she's a lot of fun. She has a lot of wisdom. We talked about our favourite books. We talked about being digital nomads and adventuring around the world, even in your midlife. So definitely check that one out as well. We have a lot of travel coach episodes, interviewing travel coaches. So these are just a few of them. I'll just knock them out. 43, travel coach Brittany Roberts. 44, relocation and travel coach Doris Dario. 47, interview with life and travel coach Claire Pritchard. There's loads of them. Again, if you go to traveltransformationcoach.com/podcast, you can see a lot more of these. You can check them out. Okay, so episode 48, the downsides of co-living. I love co-livings, but sometimes there are certain things that you need to be aware of before you go. So if you want to stay in a co-living and you haven't before, I would check out episode 48. 50, why solo traveling doesn't have to be lonely. I love solo traveling. I'm such a huge advocate for it, especially if you have never tried it before and you're a bit anxious to go, you're a bit nervous, and in particular, if you think you're going to be lonely, listen to episode 50. Episode 51, wine and travel chat with wine-asseur Deanna Lowe. This is my friend Deanna. She'd been on the podcast twice by this point. And I really like this one because we recorded it in Spain in the co-living house we were staying in the converted chapel, which is an amazing room, stained glass windows. And we recorded it about wine because she's hugely passionate about wine. She has her blog, Wine-asseur. And we did it while drinking Dolce & Gabbana wine that she'd purchased on the way to Spain. So that was a really fun episode for obvious reasons, but also because Deanna's, one of my good travel buddy friends. And it was really good fun recording that. Okay, if you're at all an animal lover, especially donkeys, 53 is the Ballad of Colin the Donkey, who is this amazing donkey who lived across the road from the co-living in the Basque Country. I actually just asked my friend Pedro, who lives there, how Colin is doing today, and he said he's still living his life. Yeah, basically we wanted to save Colin the donkey because he was on his own, he was tethered up, and we couldn't do it. We couldn't convince the owner to get either a friend or to get a new fence that we were offering to pay for. So it's very sad because I don't like the thought of him being alone. But I recorded that in real time throughout my stay at the Basque Country, so that's an interesting sort of format for the episode. That's 53. And if you want to hear about my co-living experience from this year, you can head to episode 55 and 56. And this co-living experience last year was what started off the whole Travel Transformation Company stuff. So that's quite interesting. Also, we have the pop-up spin-off roundup, episode 57, where a group of us went to Bilbao and San Sebastian in Spain afterwards and had an amazing week. Highly recommend that one as well. Okay, I talk a lot about magical movie moments. So number 62 is how to create magical movie moments on the road. And I'm going to do a lot more work around this in the future, especially around movifying your life and creating your own plot twists. And it's all about magical movie moments, basically. So definitely check out 62 if you want to inject more meaning, purpose, excitement, adventure, and magic in your travel and in your life. I've also added some interviews that I did on other podcasts. So you can check out my interview on the Footprints of an Expat podcast, which is 65. My interview on the Travel Coach Network podcast, which is 67. My interview on the Phase 4 podcast, which is 71. And there's a few others coming up as well. I did another interview with my friend Isabella Issa, who I met in Spain. And that is episode 68. That was a lot of fun as well. I enjoyed talking to Ileana Oris Valiante, which is episode 72. She talks about her burnout and how travel helped her heal. And she also talks about her potted plant theory, which is talking about what kind of plant you are in relation to travel. Whether you're a tree that's sort of rooted in the ground, whether you're an air plant that you can just like go around the world wherever, you don't need to have any roots, whether you're a potted plant where you can be moved to different pots. I really liked that analogy, so check out that episode. And that was episode 72. Life should be more like a movie, but how? Again, I'm going to talk a lot more about this stuff in the future because I'm really passionate about it. I think it's a really fun topic as well. That is episode 76, so check that out. I mentioned my time in the writer's house in Thailand before. I did a whole episode on that, episode 78, 2 months in a writer's house in Thailand, mentioning the naked burglar, I'm sure. I really enjoyed episode 79, which was interview with Darren Jonathan, founder of Average Joe Down Under. So he's from Northern Ireland, but he lives in Sydney now. So if you're thinking about moving to Australia, or if you're even just visiting Australia, this is a really great resource, a really great episode. So that's 79. I also really enjoyed talking to Domi. She had a couple of episodes. Episode 87 is the episode we recorded after I went to London and did a photo shoot with her in Notting Hill. So she's a photographer in London, but she does a lot of solo traveller photo shoots, which I think is a great idea. You don't have to worry about taking rubbish selfies or people running off with your phone if you ask them to take a picture. Went around Notting Hill, had a lovely time. It was a heat wave, so I was sweating quite a bit. Not ideal. I really enjoyed my time with her, and that episode goes through the entire photo shoot. So if you have ever thought about getting a photo shoot, whether for work purposes, whether you're travelling to London, whether you're a travel influencer and you want, those great photos, check out episode 87. Okay, so we're getting more recent now. There's so many great interviews. I feel bad skipping over a lot of these, but I don't want to spend forever here. So episode 92 was interview with Design Her Travel podcast creator and host Kim Anderson, which I really enjoyed. I went on her podcast as well, Design Her Travel, and we did both interviews back to back on Zoom. We spent about 2.5 hours together, and we had so much in common, and we had such a great time. So listen to that at 92. 93, as another favourite of mine, interview with Jack Murray, elite level athlete and peak performance and motivational mindset teen life coach, and he is 15, and he's already doing way more than I ever did when I was 15, way more than I ever did by the time I was like 25 or 30 probably. So really inspirational. We talk a lot about mindset and travel. Obviously, that's episode 93. I really enjoyed one that came out last week, interview with Violetta Snorkowski, founder and facilitator at Expand and Impact. We talk a lot about travel, about comfort zones, how to get out of your comfort zones, but in a healthy way. Her programs, Expand and Impact, experiential and outdoor learning, all the good stuff. I also really like the one I did with Marie Hernandez, which is episode 96. At the time of recording, it hasn't been released, but when you listen to this, it will have been released. I did a program with her recently all about sponsored travel. She's a sponsored travel expert. So if you're at all interested in learning how to incorporate sponsored travel into your business, that is the episode to listen to, episode 96. And yeah, that brings us up to nearly 100. I haven't yet recorded episodes 98 and 99 because I wanted to get this one done. But I can't quite believe the amount of episodes I've done, the amount of people I've interviewed, and I've still got so many more planned, so many solo episode ideas, so many interviews booked in that I hope I can still have them booked in if they don't mind waiting a little bit while I restructure my podcast a bit. But please listen to back episodes. They're evergreen content. They're always going to be there. And let me know if you want to hear about certain topics in the future. So if you really want to hear about certain mindset or self-development ideas or certain travel aspects, solo travel or digital nomads, if you have any questions, please just let me know. You can email me at info@traveltransformationcoach.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at traveltransformationcoach. Okay, so I just wanted to end with what I hope to achieve for the next 100 episodes. And maybe like my yearly review, I'll do an episode on episode 200. Hopefully it's still going by then. And I'll see how much I've learned, what I want to achieve for the next 100. So I really want to work on growing my podcast and gaining more listeners so I can get my message and my story and other people's stories and messages out to as many people as possible. So this involves learning a hell of a lot about how to do this because I don't know how to do this. And I've just started listening to an amazing podcast called Podcasting Business School. If you have your own podcast or you want to have your own podcast, definitely listening to Podcasting Business School will help. I've only just started listening to it, but I've already learned so much stuff about how to grow it organically using SEO, which you don't really think about. Well, I didn't really think about for podcasts. I think about it for like articles, blogs, that kind of thing, websites. But, each podcast episode has a description. The podcast title itself, I have changed that since listening to this episode. It's still called the Travel Transformation Podcast, but then I have a sort of subtitle afterwards with keywords in it. So hopefully people can find it better when they're searching for it. But there's also the show description and the show notes themselves that you can utilize SEO in that I need to get going on, try and get more organic growth. But I'm learning all about that. I also want to get into a rhythm that works for me. so I'm not killing myself trying to record 6 interviews a week on top of my full-time job and my side hustle. That's a big one, because if I'm not enjoying it anymore because I'm trying to do too much, then there's no point in doing it. Eventually, though, I could say I would like to monetize it. Ads from other people that I align with, or I don't want to just use any old ads. Using a podcast as a way to build my audience, all that good stuff. I'd also like to try maybe another piece of software, such as Riverside, to help me record my podcast and help out with AI tasks, such as the transcripts, because it does it all in one place. I've been talking to quite a few podcasters about this, and they say Riverside's great, but I really haven't had the time to delve into it and learn a whole new thing recently. I also want to think about my podcast differently. It's not just something I need to get done each week because I made a promise to myself, although that is part of it. It's a platform I can use to really help people, as long as I put the work in to get my podcast to grow. Otherwise, it's not really helping anyone. But yeah, I really want to focus on how I can help people, episodes and topics and subjects that I think can really help the listeners. So again, let me know if there's anything you want me to talk about in particular. I might also try mixing things up a bit. So instead of generic interviews with people talking about their work and their travels, which you can still learn a lot from and I enjoy it, I might come up with a topic that we can talk about. Some of my upcoming guests have actually requested this, because it can be really great to delve deep into one topic instead of them just answering the same old questions all the time. If they do a lot of interviews, for instance, it can get a bit repetitive, a bit robotic. So just really delving into one topic. I did this recently. I went on Marisol's podcast, which is called Roaming the Now. It hasn't been released at the time I'm recording this, but it was all about, can solo travel be empowering? So that was the topic, and we just delved really deep into that, using some of my own experiences and stories. And it was just a conversation about that, and I really like that. And then you can obviously do all the SEO around that. It's a lot easier than if it's just random questions about all kinds of different stuff. I might also do some podcast mini-series within my normal episode slots. So like I mentioned, I'm doing a lot of work around movifying your life, using self-development tools and techniques, fun mindset exercises, and travel transformation principles to make your life more like a movie, to create your own plot twists and inject more meaning, purpose, excitement, and adventure into your life. So I might do a mini-series on that, or other topics where we can go through several exercises to help you change your life. And I like listening to mini-series when other people do it, so I might try that myself. I also know podcasters who have several different podcasts, but like pop-up podcasts, if you will. And I do like the idea of that, so I could delve into the movifying your life thing a lot more. But that sounds like a whole lot more work to me. And I think at the moment I just need to stick to this one and just do mini-series within the Travel Transformation Podcast. I'd also like to do some podcast episodes that have more of a fun format, a different format. I'm not sure what yet, but I like listening to podcast episodes where people are, say, getting coached live on the podcast, or they're playing games with their co-host, or they're walking around a city or holiday destination and talking about what they see and what they're doing. There's so much scope when it comes to podcasts. It doesn't just have to be an interview or a solo episode. So I'd like to think outside the box a little more on that. And I might ask a friend, Uncle ChatGPT, to help me come up with some ideas. But I really would like to play around with the format more and just have fun with it, because it started out, I wanted to do it because I thought it would be fun, and it was. And I'm not saying I'm not having fun now, but you do get into a bit of a grind, thinking, oh, I've got 5 podcast episodes this week, like let's just get through them, instead of just taking each one and just really delving into a topic, like I said, and really enjoying having a conversation and getting to know someone. So I've got a bit of reorganizing to do, I've got a bit of rethinking to do, but I'm sticking to 2 episodes a week. I'm not stopping. I'm not having a break. I want to keep going, and hopefully it will keep growing as well in the next year, in the next 100 episodes. And yeah, I'm going to make it my goal to do a 200th episode podcast similar to this, talking about what I've learned, how we've grown, hopefully, and going through my favourite episodes as well. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope it wasn't boring. Again, I think it'll be a lot more interesting if you either have your own podcast or want to have your own podcast. But sometimes, I just like listening to people talk about behind the scenes of their business, of their podcasts, of their book, of their courses, whatever it is. And I hope you got something out of this. So like I say, I'm going to celebrate this week with the bottle of bubbly, and I hope you find something to celebrate too, whether it's something that's happening this week, something that's happened in the past that you never got around to celebrating. It's never too late. Grab that cup of tea, that cup of chai, that glass of bubbly, and celebrate the achievement, celebrate doing the thing no matter what the outcome, because I think a lot of us don't do that. I certainly don't. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you for listening to this solo episode. and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Travel Transformation Podcast with me, Jessica Grace Coleman. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could please subscribe, rate and review, and spread the word, because it's my mission to help as many people as possible to flip the script on their lives and transform through travel. And remember, life is short, so let's make sure it's nothing short of amazing. Until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.